present day and present time in this country, Nigeria, when everyone is passing through one difficulty or the others, we all need a support system in one way or the other to enable us live an achievable life. Welcome to another episode of the program Disability Voice from the Advent Cable Network, Nigeria. I am Favor Ajay. Today we'll be looking at a topic that says disability and support system. And to discuss this topic with me today in the studio is Ms. Oyemechi Constance Nneka. Ms. Oyemechi Constance Nneka is the ED, the Executive Director of the Women and Girls with Albinism Network in Nigeria. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Favor. It's good to be here.
Have you here, Constance.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So let's quickly go into the discussion without wasting much time. So please, can you describe disability and support system?
Yes, thank you very much for that question, disability and support system. First off, I will try by defining what disability is. So according to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the UNCRPD, it defines disability as a long-term physical, mental, intellectual impairment that when it interacts with the barriers in the society, it does not allow the individual participate on an equal level with others. So when the person's impairment comes in contact with barriers, and we'll talk about barriers, we'll talk of attitudinal barriers, we talk of systematic barriers, we talk of communication barriers, and a whole lot of barriers that are already in place in the society that makes it a disability. And when we look at support system is that, to couch it, it helps you, it helps couch your problems or lessen your problems or your worries. That helps you become someone better. For example, as an individual, your support system might come as your family, your friends, your peer groups. But when you look at it in a larger context, when it relates to disability and the support system, you're looking at the society. Now, in broader terms, for support systems for persons with disabilities, you look at government, you look at non-profit organizations, and you look at private organizations. For the government, you look at activities that they put out there to support or empower persons with disabilities. Or when you look at the non-governmental organizations, you look at support groups in maybe different clusters of disabilities, giving out guidance, giving out counseling. So those can be support groups, advocacy groups. Those are also support groups when we look at it. Then also the private sectors. So for me, that is what I see as a support system for persons with disabilities. And you might ask, are these support systems really present in the country? I would say to an extent, yes. But are they doing so much? No.
Thank you so much for that definition.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. So now, just to follow up what you just said now, to some extent support systems are available in Nigeria. Can you give us some examples of these support systems that are available? And if they are available, yes, one thing is for support systems to be available, another thing is for the systems to be working. So can you give us some example, for instance?
Okay, so from the top of my head, I don't think I can actually mention, but I know that for organizations of persons with disabilities, they tend to provide some sort of support for persons with disabilities. Let's say, for example, during the COVID period, a lot of persons with disabilities were going through different types of abuse, and there was hunger, there was a high level of poverty. Now, a lot of OPD organizations had to interface with the government to ensure that some kind of support like palliatives were made available for persons with disabilities. I think this is one of the support systems, but it doesn't come like as it should be. It's not in place. It only comes as a result of some sort of sudden change in the government, or some sort of hardship, or some sort of intervention, just a quick intervention, and then after that it's done. But for me, I think when it comes to support system, it should be a standardized thing that is already in place that anyone can run to at any given time.
Okay, so to quickly follow that up, when we talk of support system, is it limited to the assistance you give to persons with disability or individuals, or it cut across to the accessibility you made available for persons with disability? Because now we are talking of disability and their support system now. The accessibility that is made available for persons with disability, are they also support system? If we are to really define the support system, like the RAM, the sign language interpreters, the Braille, and the rest of them.
Oh yes, they are actually support systems. Now, every human needs a support system. But being particular about persons with disabilities, we face a lot of discrimination, we face a lot of stigmatization. And when we look at accessibility or assistive devices given, it's also part of support. For example, if you give a person with physical impairment a wheelchair, when you have assessed that the person needs a wheelchair and you provide a wheelchair, is a support. You have actually enabled the person tackle a part of his or her mobility issues. If you give me as a person with albinism, you say, okay, fine, you're a person with albinism and you cannot afford to get your recommended glasses. I want to support you get it. It's a support. So in whichever form it comes, as long as support simply means to help ease your pain, help alleviate your pain to an extent. So if all that is given and at a point it helps ease your pain, it reduces the struggles you're going through, yes, it is a support.
Thank you so much for that insight. So now let's narrow it down to women and girls with albinism. Being the executive director of Women and Girls with Albinism Network here in Nigeria, so do you think their support system available, knowing fully aware of the discrimination they face on daily basis, the lack of medical care, and every other obstacle, every other barriers that they face on daily basis? Do you think that their support systems are available for women and girls with albinism?
Thank you very much for that question. I'm very passionate when it comes to talking about persons with albinism because I feel their pains because I'm a person with albinism. So first off, before I provide an answer to your question, I'll start first by defining what albinism is. Because I've come across a lot of people who say, oh, I see you, a person, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And it's not just about how you see me, it's about how well do I interact on an equal basis with others. So first off, albinism is a genetic condition that affects the hair, the eyes, and the skin. Albinism in itself is divided into two. We have ocular. Ocular affects only the eyes. You see some people who have different shades of eyeballs, and you know that, okay, yeah, this is ocular. But when you come to ocular cutaneous, it affects the hair, the skin, and the eyes, and I am ocular cutaneous. So if you see somebody like me with the hair, the skin, and the eyes, you just know that this person is ocular cutaneous. But then what kind of ocular cutaneous? Because even in ocular cutaneous, we have 9 subtypes of ocular cutaneous. We have a lot of persons with albinism who produce more melanin than others, some who don't produce any melanin at all, and we are all ocular cutaneous albinism. Albinism is not a disease like some people tend to believe, but it is a genetic condition. And in Africa and Nigeria specifically, albinism is still quite new because, yes, we've seen a lot of persons with albinism, but then the understanding of albinism is still very new. And because of that, a lot of persons with albinism go through high-level discrimination, stigmatization from social life, from healthcare. When you talk about albinism, our first fear is skin cancer because we are very much more susceptible to skin cancer because of the ultraviolet rays from the sun. And then as a result of albinism as well, lack of melanin, it affects our sight. So we have low vision, at varying degrees. Some see better than others, but they are all low vision. And then we also have the skin cancer issue, which is now very much more prevalent because of the harshness of the sun. And a lot of persons, let me put it out there, a lot of persons with albinism are actually dying of skin cancer. Now, taking it down to support system. There are support systems when it comes to health. But then these support systems are not really, they are just there, but they are not specific. They are not disability specific. For example, you take the dermatologists, for example, who are in the healthcare, who are supposed to check your skin. And I, as a person with albinism, I'm supposed to go check my skin when I find any warts or moles to know if they are cancerous or not. But you find out that when you go to the hospital, you don't get that service. You don't get that presence of a dermatologist in the government hospitals. Rather, you can, if you have money, you go to the private sectors. So you see that in health, it's supposed to be there, but it is not there. And especially also social life, because of the high level of discrimination we face, these support systems are there, but we cannot access them because of the discrimination we face. So it's like a two-faced thing. There's this support system here in social activities. You want to get it, but because of how they view you as a person with albinism, you can't get it. So you can't access the support system that is already available. And then for the support system that should be there and is not there, it is absent. You can't get something that is not there. So for persons with albinism, we go through a lot of challenges accessing support because some are there but are limited. We can access it, while some are not there at all.
Wow, this is really interesting. This is really interesting. So, that means in Nigeria we need more support system
Oh, definitely.
for persons with albinism. In
Yes.
particular, when we talk of support system and disabilities in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, before we move forward, I think we need to go on a short break. Viewer, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
You can't deceive God. None of us can deceive God.
Nobody can actually become a leader if God has not ordained it.
What is the right knowledge? The right knowledge is scripture,
Yes, sir.
because the Bible is light years ahead of science.
But I usually will ask God, how do I explain this thing in a way that people will understand? The Spirit of God can anoint you to teach, can anoint you to preach, can anoint you for business, can anoint you in politics.
The scripture speaking. Psalm chapter 107 verse 20. He sent forth his word and healed them and delivered them from every of their destruction. We are trusting the Lord that as we discuss his word this day, God will deliver us from every form of ignorance, every form of destruction, and grant us grace to walk even in the path of wisdom. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
Welcome back, viewers. If you are just joining us, this is the program Disability Voice. And still with me in the studio is Miss Oyemechi Constance Nneka. Miss Oyemechi Constance Nneka is the Executive Director of Women and Girls with Albinism Network, Nigeria. So, back to the studio. You know, we were talking of disability and their support system.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk of how persons with albinism have little or no support system in some sectors
Mm-hmm.
in the country. Now, being the executive director of the Women and Girls with Albinism Network, have you been able to carry out some programs to sensitize the general public about the needs and support system of the needs and support of women and girls with albinism in this country?
Yes, thank you for that very important question. You know, advocacy in general is not an easy task. It is tasking. but I've been able to build on partnerships with other organizations that also speak to the work that I do. Because Women and Girls with Albinism is an organization, you know, that was birthed because we found out that the issues of albinism was not being treated well, was not given attention. We were more like we were just there existing but not living. That is why the organization was birthed. So far, what we do, our objectives include, but not limited to, inclusive, safe, and affordable healthcare for persons with albinism. That is our number one priority, because we believe that if a person with albinism gets access to healthcare, the person can live to his or her full potential, because that is where we have the most challenge. Our second objective is on inclusive education. Now, you look at dropouts in schools, you find out that a lot of persons with disabilities, persons with albinism are amongst these dropouts, because the educators do not even understand their needs. I was going to school. When I was in school, I was put anywhere in class, to sit anywhere, and it affected my grades because I wasn't performing as expected. I was coming last in class, and you know, the teachers were not ready to understand my needs. They were not ready to make adjustments. At a point, I got disinterested in education. I told my dad, I don't want to go to school. This school is not for me, because my educational needs were not met. But my dad moved on because he loves education. He went ahead to change me from that school to another school. And when we got there, they asked me, he told them, actually, my daughter said she can't see the board. What do you think is the best place? They took me to the classroom and asked me, where would you like to sit? Pick anywhere you would like to sit. I went straight to the board. I was checking the board with my eyesight because I had not started using glasses by then. I was still in primary school. I kept looking at the board and pacing myself until I got to a spot where I told the teacher, I like this spot. I can see the board from this spot. They moved my seat to that point. I was sitting alone. My first term in that school, former me that was coming 21st in the former school took 7th position. That's because my parents took into recognition that I was complaining I could not see. They believed I had the potential to do well if given the right opportunity. They changed the school. The educators were ready to listen. They listened and they gave me a good spot, and I was able to do well. How many children with albinism have this? Not so many, because even a lot of children with albinism were abandoned by their parents because they came out as a child with albinism. So when you talk about inclusive education, the education system is not inclusive because it does not identify the needs of persons with albinism and try to give, possible ways where these needs can be addressed. So you see a lot of dropouts. That's why we also advocate for inclusive education for these persons, because the future of every nation rests on the shoulders of whoever that is educated. It rests on the shoulders of every individual that gets educated. We also advocate for peace building. I know you might be wondering, why peace building? Because I believe that every woman, every girl, everybody should be a peace builder. It's either you build peace or you manage conflicts. So we are into peace building as well, also supported by the UNSCR, the United Nations Conflict Resolution Council, that's 1325 that speaks to women, and also 2250 that speaks to youths. So we do women and we also do young girls are also youths. And recently we just included a path on research. Why research? It's not enough to talk about experience. It's not enough to talk about things from just books, but it is very solid when you deal with facts and figures and data. They cannot be questioned. So when we talk about, we do not have this, when you speak it and when you show it, they produce different results. When you say it, people can forget. But when you speak it, people can forget. But when you show it, it is there. And it is buried in the sands of time. People see it, and people begin to know that you understand what is going on. They begin to take correction. Whoever that is supposed to provide that service, with that data available, the person begins to buckle up and begin to provide this thing. So that's why we've moved into research. So not just talk about, okay, we don't have this, but to actually prove that these things are not available. Part of the things we've done, you know, to build support for persons with albinism, we've been able to give out sunscreens, distribution of sunscreens to children within the age of 0 months to 17 years, you know, give them sunscreens. And the reason why we chose that age gap is because a child from 0 months to 17 years is still learning. A child cannot sit down and say, okay, I'm a person with albinism, I need to do this, I need to do that. But the onus rests on us as adults to be able to now protect the child from that age till a particular age where we know that that child can begin to fend for him or herself. That is why we started from that age. We're not saying that adults are not important, but we feel that we do not want to lose our young ones early, because skin cancer is a build-up of continuous sun exposure. And when you are in school as a child, you go out, you play with your mates under the sun, you don't understand these things. So it is left for us to now help guide you. We've also, you know, created awareness to parents with children with albinism, because a lot of parents who went to the labor room and gave birth to a child with albinism were shocked. You know, I must confess, some go to the labor and they say, oh, this is your child. Like, no, God forbid, we don't have this.
Yeah, we have several of them like that.
Yes. So we started doing this awareness to change their mindset that you having a child with albinism is not a bad thing. It's actually a blessing. This is how you can take care of your child. You have to debunk this myth and superstitious belief. A child is a child, whichever color it comes from. A child is a child. So exactly. So we've been able to talk to parents, you know, talk to caregivers of persons with albinism, tell them how they should treat the child with albinism, how to take care of the skin of the child with albinism, how to also build the esteem, the self-esteem of that child with albinism. That is a lot of things we've done: awareness creation, distribution of sunscreens, and you know, we've been able to do that with support, with collaboration with other other organizations.
Wow, you've really done a lot. You've done a lot, and I think with this, we need to applaud you for doing this, and you are still doing more, I guess.
Yes.
So, talking of
it's for humanity.
What does sunscreen do? You know, people will be asking, if you have to be asking out there, sunscreen, you know, we can misquote the language sometimes. So, sunscreen, I guess, used for your skin to guide against skin cancer. Or
yes. So, sunscreen is not your regular body cream. It's a sun protection formula, where when you're going out, you apply it on the exposed parts of your skin. Now, they come in different sun protection formulas. We have 30, we have 50, we have 60, we have 100. As a person with albinism, you're advised to use 100. But then again, 100 is not available. It's not readily available. And when you see it, it's expensive.
Another barrier.
Exactly. So how to use your sunscreen? You bathe, you apply your regular cream. If you're going to wear a short-sleeved dress, apply on the exposed parts of your body. Some minutes before going out. 80 minutes after, you reapply. Because it's one application will not carry you all through the day. You have to reapply 80 minutes. Now, it depends on the sunscreen. Some say reapply after 80 minutes, some say reapply after an hour. So you have to read the instructions given. But sunscreen basically is to help protect your skin from sunburn, from freckles, and the rest of it. So it's virtually to just protect your skin, so that at the end of the day, you don't come down with skin cancer.
Yes, that means anytime a person with albinism is going out, you don't just leave the sunscreen at home. You have to put it in your bag.
Yes.
Go go out with it,
And
depending on how long you are staying out.
exactly. And I want to also correct something. When you have a sunscreen, it doesn't mean you are now harmless or the sun cannot affect you. We also have other things we tell them to use, like using the umbrella to also protect, use wide-brimmed hats, also use sunglasses because the sun affects the eyes. And if you're going to get recommended glasses, you need to get photochromic glasses so that when you're under the sun, it changes. You can still walk under the sun.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much for that exposure. So what do you have to say? What advice do you have to say to the government and persons with disability in general as regard to the support system we have available in the country, and the advice you have for government as regard to the support systems we don't have, but we are in need of this support system in the country? What is your advice?
Okay, so my advice to the government when it comes to creating or enabling that we have good support systems is to increase funding and resources for support systems. To create programs. If they don't have programs already, they should create to ensure that they have support systems in the various MDAs. It also lies on the government to create awareness to the public, educate the public, create awareness to the public to let them know that persons with disabilities go through stigmatization, go through discrimination, and for that to be eradicated, they need to be acceptance of persons with disabilities, because disability can happen to anyone at any time. And because we talk about building an inclusive environment, the government should begin to look at support system from an inclusive lens, not from an exclusive lens. Now, what do I mean? When they begin to bring out programs, they shouldn't just say, oh, it is for these people. It is not for us, because everybody needs a support system. And also the best way to build a strong support system, there shouldn't be exclusion. At the table, there should be persons with disabilities and persons without disabilities to put these programs together, because like I said, we are all humans and we all need support systems. It also lies on the government to go out there and create awareness, join organizations of persons with disabilities, join voices to advocate for the inclusion of persons with disabilities at all levels. If jobs are provided, jobs is also a support system, because a lot of persons with disabilities don't have jobs and they become suicidal. We've even read where persons without disabilities drop suicidal notes. Now look at a person with disability. When opportunities are presented for jobs, employment, what have you, empowerment programs, it is a very good support system, because people will then begin to think of how to give back to the society and not just to collect, because that is the essence of a support system. You give and you collect.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that insight and for that advice to the government. Time is not on our side. If not, we would have still go on and on and on to talk about the support system. But because of our time, I think we'll wrap it up here for today. And I believe that some other time when we call on you, you will also respond to our call to be on the show once more again.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you very much for coming to the show today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you
so much. Viewers, this is where we draw the curtain of today's program, Disability Voice. But before we go, everyone needs a support system, especially persons with disability needs a support system. So if you are out there, you are in position to be a support to anybody, please make yourself available. Always remember that disability is everyone's business, and leave no one behind. Until we come your way again next week on same station, same time, I remain Favour Ajara. Bye for now.